Kansas coasts by Oklahoma State. Are they? Is Jalon Daniels officially back? And can they get to bowl eligibility now, one win away?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you to the everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. And on today's edition, we're breaking down KU's 38-21 victory over Oklahoma State. KU kind of coasted to the finish line, though. It wasn't so easy at the start of the game, and I think overall just a good response by KU both in this game and where they've been the last couple weeks. I thought it was a good response from Jalon Daniels, even though you might look at the box score and say, what do you mean? Only 110 yards. I'm going to break all that down because positives, negatives, goats or game balls of the game, other awards, and plenty more to come away from. What's going on with the defense against the pass, all of that on today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks. And today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So Kansas wins 38-21 in a game that certainly for KU was, as important to, there have been other games that have been more important to win for Kansas. Some they have, some they haven't. I don't know that there was a more important game for Kansas not to lose than this one specifically. I guess maybe you would say like the South Dakota game and the Lance Leipold opener, just from a standpoint of okay, make it be different. Don't lose to the FCS team like all the other coaches did. But at the end of the day, I don't know, would have completely changed things for KU? Maybe, maybe not. This was that important because if you lose this game, the path to bowl eligibility became not quite extinct, but certainly was going to look, it's already going to be tough at this point, even at 5-4. So 4-5, plus you come off a loss to at that point would be a 2-7 team, 1-7 coming into this game. It would have been inexcusable to lose this game for KU and what this would have possibly meant for the program. So this was big to get back onto it. It was also big the way that you won the game with your level of play from really quarters 2 on, that you were able to coast by at the end and have kind of an easy, I try to remind myself that where things were 3-4 years ago. I know you want to continue to build and have higher expectations, but let's not forget either. 10 years ago, Kansas was the team, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Kansas was the team that Oklahoma State was every year. And they were the team getting trounced. So it's kind of nice to have a nice and easy Big 12 victory at the same point in time. But in the same way that, I think it was a good response by KU. Again, you get down 7-0. You have lost these last couple games in blowout fashion, including to your rival in Kansas State. It would have been easy to, just turtle up, to get in a shell, to almost quit on, that was kind of the question there. Was this going to cause kind of a quitting on the season, so to speak? Didn't end up happening at all. Even after the 7-0, you were able to respond. And, hats off to them for having the adversity to kind of overcome that. Obviously, there's certain things that you don't want to have happen to get behind 7-0 on Oklahoma State. But I also thought one of the big things coming into this game, obviously, was Jalon Daniels looking for a bounce back, because Jalon did not look good against Kansas State. And you were your best path to bowl eligibility didn't just include winning this game. It included Jalon Daniels starting to play like the guy we saw in the first 7 games before the Kansas State game. And you look at the box score and you go, Jalon Daniels at 110 passing yards? What do you mean he turned things around? Okay, but they didn't need him to throw in the second half. He goes 13 of 19, so he completes 68% of his passes for 110 yards with 2 touchdowns. And I guess I don't know. I just look at it from a standpoint of are you making key plays for your team when it matters? And when the game was on the line, when the game mattered in the first half and everything, he was making key plays. You look at total QBR, ESPN's metric that does take into account, if it was 3rd and 8 and you threw a 7-yard pass, that's not going to be given as much credit as if it's 3rd and 3 and you threw a 4-yard pass, because one's converting the 3rd down, one's not. And Jalon was given an 85 total QBR in this game. I think that kind of backs up what I'm saying here in a way. And the other thing that's crazy, it wasn't a big running game for him. He had 6 carries for 28 yards, but when he had to have it, that one scramble that he had on the first drive for the KU offense was they eventually get a field goal and respond to the touchdown at least a little bit. Like when you had to have it every so often, it was there. When you had to have the throw on third down or on fourth down, it was there. And he made big enough throws that he looked like the guy we saw in the first 7 games. It's just statistically, it wasn't as much. And the other part of it is Kansas was able to establish the run so much. And then the other part of it is that Oklahoma State had the ball for so long in the first half that the possessions and the amount of passes were just limited. So I wouldn't look at it from a standpoint of just the box score. Jalon played a good game and was very successful in doing so. And in fact, like if you look at certain numbers, like if you look at EPA, expected points added per dropback, Kansas was in the 91st percentile in this game. So it was a good bounce back game for Jalon Daniels. I think besides that, some of the biggest positives for KU, the running game got going again. They were in the 91st percentile in this one, and EPA per rush as well. So it was something where, you were just able to kind of grind out yards. Like you actually hit some explosive runs in this game, which are classified as like 10 or more yard runs. You're actually able to hit those a little bit more often in this game. Leshon Williams coming back from being kind of hurt, 14 carries, 77 and a touchdown. Daniel Hishaw, 14 for 65 and 2 touchdowns. You even hit the long run with Isaiah Marshall in there. I thought the run by Cam Pickett was awesome. Jalon Daniels adds 28 yards, 232 rushing yards, but 5.9 yards per carry. And whereas like the West Virginia game, you had over 200 rushing yards, but a lot came on that late long touchdown from Leshon Williams. This was just constantly going for the KU offense. And so that was, I don't know, I mean, you could make the argument that was KU's best rushing game of the season. And so that was a really good positive from this one. And Lance Leipold in postgame said this is the healthiest that, Leshon and Hishaw have been since really the start of the season together. So that's a good sign for Kansas coming into the back 3 games of the season. I also thought we saw some future meeting some current in this game. That was certainly a positive. Like you saw the long run from Isaiah Marshall. Is Marshall going to eventually be QB1 next year? Is it going to be Cole Ballard, David McComb, Jalen Mason? Who knows? But if it is Marshall, we saw a little bit of the bit of athleticism that certainly would get you excited for that to be the case. Blake Harrell is a current guy because he plays a ton on this year's team, but he's also a future guy because he's still just a redshirt sophomore. Him and Marcus Calvin, who's a redshirt freshman, both had big-time plays and games at the defensive tackle spot for KU in this one. So you saw a little bit of the future from those guys as well. I think that, as you're getting to the end of this season, obviously you want Kansas to make a bowl game. So there is that level of now, but there always is, when you hit a certain point, you're at 4 losses, you lost your rival. You are at the same point in time, even though, again, you're trying to make it to a bowl game, kind of looking ahead to be like, okay, well, what are reasons too that I'm going to be even more excited for 2026? And that's one of those that I kind of look at there. I would also say Bryson Canty is a reason to, one of the bigger positives from this game. Like, I've kind of said all year long, like he felt like kind of bringing a different element to this receiver core, with Pickett and Henderson being more of your yard after catch guys, or in Henderson's case, more of like a deep ball and yard after catch guy. Canty brings the big body receiver who can make the contested catches. And it felt like that's what was missing really in the Kansas State game. And Canty was a guy who joined late, and he's had injury. So it's been tough to like fully catch up on everything. But I hope the game he played, he had that big catch on, that was, I think, the first offensive drive for KU of the game that he had downfield. And then he had the touchdown grab on the fade route. I hope that grows his confidence. I hope that grows, Jim Zabrowski and Matt Lubick and Lance Leipold's confidence in him to play more, because I think he can add another element to this passing game that they really need. And then I would say third downs. This was a game we talked about coming in. Oklahoma State's not a good third down defense. Kansas had not been a good third down offense. So we wanted to see them finally convert. Well, they went 6 of 10 on third downs and 3 of 3 on fourth downs. I will say, biggest negative from the game, right? Overall, it's a positive. You win the game by 17. You didn't cover, unfortunately. You were up 24 till they got the late touchdown. But the pass defense is still a problem for KU. Obviously, there's a lot of young bodies in the secondary overall for Kansas. But 86th percentile EPA per dropback was Oklahoma State. This was a team that coming in had a handful of passing touchdowns. Zane Flores came in with, I think, 0 passing touchdowns at 3 interceptions. And at one point, he was like 19 of 22. He obviously got knocked out, but 22 of 28, 235, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They were able to throw the ball. And it's not just like they were able to throw the ball like into tight windows or something. No, how often was a dude just like wide open against KU? There's too much soft coverage, which I don't know. Like I continue to believe if you're going to get burnt anyway, which Kansas has been getting burnt all season long. If you're going to get burnt anyway, why not just press? Because if you're going to give up, some deep balls because you're pressing and you're risk reward. Okay, but you're already doing that. So why not add more reward possibly by doing, I don't know. And then like, at what point, I'm going to try not to be crass here, but like, it feels like every week in the press conferences, we hear about the defense like, oh, okay, somebody was just, or the players were just lined up wrong, or they were doing the wrong thing, or, you know, they weren't fully on assignment, or whatever it is, right? And like, at what point, I don't know, is this just the most complicated defense to figure out, and so nobody can figure out where they are? So, like, do you need to simplify it at some point? If nobody can line up and we're in the 9th game of the season and you're, you know, or I don't know, are people just, are the players that you recruited just not smart enough to figure it out? Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Is it going to get figured out the rest of the season? Probably not. But like, yeah, man, that is certainly a problem. So you look at KU's final games, like, you just hope you're not playing good passing teams. Unfortunately, they are playing at least decent quarterbacks in every game. But bottom line, this was a must win for the team and the program with where it is. So you got the win. You cruised in the second half. That's good. I'm not going to, you know, I don't know. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it because I've seen so many years where I would kill to be in this position where Kansas was at this point in time. So you won by 17. Now go win one more. Make it to a bowl game. All right. Let's continue on with our moments, stats, awards of the game, and the little game balls as well. This is Locked On Jayhawks. This episode of LOJ is brought to you by Mazda, and Mazda is moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There's moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, I want to go back to the 4th down and 2 play that KU is going in toward the end zone at the end of the first half. They eventually get a touchdown to go up 10-7, but they're down 7-3 at the time. They have a 4th and 2 inside around the 30 or so, and they throw the ball short to Leighton Cure. Leighton Cure moved the game forward for KU here because Leighton Cure is playing more because KU's top 2 tight ends, Deshaun Hanukkah got hurt in season. And then I guess Keon Burnett transfers away at one point. And then Carson Bruin, their other top tight end, is injured and out in this one as well. So Leighton Cure has to play more. He makes a big catch on 4th and 2, and it's close whether he's going to get it or not. He falls forward, stretches forward, fights for it, and gets the yardage to pick up the first down and move the chains. That moved the game forward for KU. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe to the show. Okay, our moments and plays of the game. We just talked about Leighton Cure, that 4th and 2. That was a huge moment in the game. I mean, if you want to say Jalen's scramble on that 3rd down that picked him up the first down, because eventually just getting points so that there's at least a little bit of momentum coming back after you're down 7-0 with where you had been, that was important. The Cure 4th and 2 was huge, though. Eventually you get a touchdown on that drive to go up 10-7 for your first lead of the game. Both missed Oklahoma State field goals were huge plays, specifically the 19-yarder at the end, because that's one that you're even less so expecting them to miss. And then obviously you get the high snap and the block by KU that causes it. But that is such a momentum boost too, going into halftime and feeling like, okay, this is a for sure. And like Oklahoma State could have just gone for it. They could have taken the lead at half, and that would have been such a different thing. So that was honestly probably the biggest difference in the game. The second half, just opening drive in general, was a huge moment of the game where you go down, you're up 10-7. They've had this big momentum killing play, and you now transfer that momentum into your first drive of the second half. You get a touchdown, you go up 2 scores. I thought my favorite play from that drive on it. I mean, the Canty fade route touchdown was good. I think that was that drive, not the next one. I don't know, it might have been the next one. But the Cam Pickett, they run the like little triple option play and they pitch it to Pickett. Pickett looked really good in that position. I'd like to see him get involved. Like, you saw some plays where Henderson is back there as a running back. Yeah, give Henderson and Pickett, 1, 2, 3 carries a game as a running back. I don't think that's the worst idea in the world with both their running abilities. The Blake Harrell sack, that was kind of a key moment in the game because, again, Flores was throwing it all over the yard on KU's secondary and stuff. And so from that standpoint, like getting Harrell to get the pressure and get the sack, and then the ball comes out and stuff, was just huge because you're preventing them from throwing on the secondary. The Zeke Marshall QB counter run for 43 yards, that was awesome because it felt like potentially a glimpse into the future. I don't know. Again, it might be Ballard next year. Who knows? But I I'm high on Isaiah Marshall, and you see why. Like, those are the athletic plays that he can possibly bring to the table. I think the Canty touchdown on the fade route was actually on that drive. That was a good moment too, though. And then I think this is kind of the last one that I'd bring up is there's a 4th and 1 for Kansas. I want to say it was in the fourth quarter. And at this point in the game, I want to say it was 24-14, and Leshon Williams converts. It was great blocking, and it was a really good read, like vision-wise, by Leshon Williams. And when he cut it up, and he goes untouched for a while, and then eventually he gets knocked down around the 2 or 3 yard line or something. That was a big moment in the game, because if you think about it, if Kansas doesn't get that 4th down, it's 24-14, and Oklahoma State has the ball with the way they're throwing the football. In a game where now they have a little bit of momentum back. And if they go down and score, it's a 1-score game to the very end, right? And instead, that gives you the comfort. You score a touchdown, you make it 31-14, and then it just kind of felt like, okay, we're going to win this thing. So those would be my moments of the game. The stats of the game for KU. So it's interesting because you look at the total yards in this one, it's only 342 to 316, but it has to be the rushing yards. 232 to 72 is the rushing yards difference here, right? I mean, 5.9 yards per rush for KU, 2.3 yards per rush for Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was able to throw the ball effectively, as we talked about, but they weren't able to run the ball effectively, and Kansas was able to run the ball effectively. Like, that was the difference in this game to me, and I think that's kind of the stat of the game in the end. I mean, it was a low penalty game. There were 3 total penalties, which made it for kind of a fast game, and certainly probably a more pleasing one to watch. There was only 1 punt, interestingly enough. That was a Oklahoma State punt. I mean, Kansas didn't punt in this game. That actually is pretty crazy to think about. The 3rd downs was huge for Kansas in general, but Oklahoma State was also really good on 3rd downs. So I think it just is the rushing numbers. I think that's kind of the difference in the game in this one. I mean, Kansas had 2 sacks. Oklahoma State had 0. Like, I guess that's a big moment in the game. The tackles for loss was 6-4, but the TFL yards was 22 lost versus 5 lost. So, that's a big difference too in the end. But yeah, I would say the stat of the game is the rushing difference. And then our awards here. You know what? Is it crazy to give the run of the year to Kansas, to that Daniel Hishaw 16-yard run? It was the one right after Leighton Cure had the 4th down conversion. And then Daniel Hishaw, I think there's an incompletion. And then Daniel Hishaw has a 16-yard run. He's breaking tackles. He's weaving through defenders. And then he has the big, like, kind of stiff arm shrug, get off me. And then he pops out of bounds. There have been longer runs for KU this year. I don't know. There's been more explosive run, but I don't know. Just all the broken tackles and the action and the kind of like demoralizing finish to the run. That was probably my favorite run of the year for KU. Honestly, his 3-yard touchdown run, on that drive too was pretty cool too, because he broke some tackles. It looked like he was going to get stuffed at the line of scrimmage. Second efforted through and then found the hole and scored the touchdown there as well. The almost had it of the game, that goes to Lyric Rawls. So Trey Lathan, a season ago or a few games ago, had the interception against his former team in West Virginia. Brought it back. Trey Lathan's had a good year. Lyric Rawls has had a good year for Kansas too. Lyric Rawls nearly had a pick 6 on Oklahoma State. They threw like that out route and he kind of jumped it. The ball was a little too out of his reach. Almost had himself a pick 6, almost had it against his former team for a little bit of revenge, but still in the end, his team comes out with the 17-point victory. And then my last award here is the box score doesn't tell the story award. That goes to Jalon Daniels, as we talked about earlier. 19 passes, 110 yards. That doesn't jump off the page, but when you look at when he needed to be efficient on the key downs, you look at QBR, you look at, EPA per play, he was really good in this game for KU and certainly looked like the guy who was comfortable more toward the beginning of the season. Let's finish up here, giving out our game balls to the offense, defense, and special teams. This is Locked On Jayhawks. And today's episode of LOJ is brought to you by DoorDash. It is the weekend. Let's look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. We're going to go with Blake Harrell. Not a good game for the KU pass defense, not a good game for the secondary for KU, but Blake Harrell helped provide some pressure for Kansas, and he obviously had that sack that led to a strip sack, and that was important because it prevents the ball from being in the air. That was actually his only tackle of the game, but it felt like he was around the ball. It felt like he had another at least pressure in there, and Blake Harrell, that was a key moment in the game. And just like Blake Harrell delivered for Kansas, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Just bet on the Dodgers to win the World Series in 2026. It'll probably happen. You can do that at FanDuel, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks, a little postcast from KU taking down Oklahoma State 38-21. We'll have our takeaways from the game coming up on Monday. We will also be getting to some KU basketball stuff. Obviously, the season openers on Monday, and we got the North Carolina game coming up. So plenty coming on with Locked On Jayhawks as well. Our game balls. Let's start with the offensive game balls. We're going to give the first one. Honestly, let's give one to the offensive line. Just in terms of you coming off your probably two worst games of the season. I don't know. They weren't a huge problem against Kansas State. It wasn't a great game, but I don't think it was a bad game either. But Jalon Daniels didn't get sacked, and you ran for 232 yards on 5.9 per carry with a bunch of different runners. Nobody had more than 80 yards. Offensive line gets game ball for the KU offense. And then I'm going to go with Daniel Hishaw. I know Leshon actually had on the same amount of carries, 12 more rush yards, but it felt like in the earlier moments of the game when the game was closer and some of those big broken tackle runs, like it felt like some more of Leshon Williams runs were like they were blocked even better than maybe the Hishaw ones. So I'm going to go with Hishaw as the other game ball for the KU offense. For the KU defensive side of the ball, I thought Leroy Harris was in on a lot of plays for KU. He ended up with 5 tackles. He had a TFL, but it felt like he had a pressure or two in the game as well. So I thought he was all around it for KU. And then I just want to give the KU defensive tackles one in the same way we gave the KU offensive line. Blake Harrell had obviously the strip sack that they recovered. DJ Withers had half a TFL. Keenan Caldwell had 1.5 TFLs. Tommy Dunn had 3 tackles for Kansas. Marcus Calvin getting it. So it just felt like there was a lot there for the KU defensive tackles in this game. And obviously you shut down their running game, right? And a lot of that was on the defensive tackles. So I thought they had a good game for KU. And this was one of those where, you talk about that being a strength for the team. Sometimes it's shown up this season, other times it hasn't. And in this game, I think it certainly showed up for KU. So that would be my 2 there. And then on special teams, I guess we'll give one to, you didn't punt, so I can't pick anybody there. You had no punt returns. So I guess we'll go Emmanuel Henderson. He had the 56-yard kick return. He nearly busted that one in the second half as well. And then Leif Marjan, in a game where Oklahoma State missed 2 field goals, just making your 39-yarder was a big boon, big advantage for KU. So those will be our game balls for this one. We'll get more to our GOATs of the game as we kind of reflect, take a deeper dive into the game coming up on Monday's show, but that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time for another edition of LOJ.